Welcome back to part 2 of the Beginner's Guide to Classic Professions. In this part, we're going to finish up with the 3 primary gathering professions and the 3 secondary professions. I'm going to run these slides one more time just real fast. First, we have the ranks. My apologies, by the way, in the first part, I mixed up apprentice and journeyman. Apprentice is actually the first rank, next comes journeyman, though for all intents and purposes, there's effectively no big difference between the two, as far as where, trainers would be and such. Next, we also have the difficulty of harvesting or crafting items and the colors they correspond to. Pretty straightforward. With that out of the way, let's jump right into it. On to the gathering professions first, starting with skinning. Skinning is definitely the easiest profession. Whenever you kill beasts out in the open world, chances are you can skin it, and you're going to be killing lots of beasts while you level, so skinning is super easy to level up. But wait, first you have to go to a trade goods vendor or a general goods vendor and buy a skinning knife. If you don't have the skinning knife in your inventory, you cannot skin things, similar to blacksmithing and the blacksmithing hammer. Skinning is the primary gathering profession for leatherworking, and it helps a tiny bit for some recipes and tailoring. We talked about the tiers of leather and leatherworking, so I'll throw up the reagent list and we'll move on. Next up is mining, which is somewhat difficult to level up. When you learn the mining skill, you get 3 things: the ability to right-click and loot mining nodes, aka ore veins, the toggled ability Find Minerals, which highlights said mining nodes on your minimap, and smelting. Smelting requires standing near a furnace, seen in the blacksmithing section, to refine your ore into bars, which are then used primarily by blacksmithing and engineering. Most of the ore you'll be able to see is in the reagent tiers here. Smelting can also increase your mining skill, which makes leveling mining less of a pain than it already is. Mining a node first requires having a mining pick, similar to how skinning requires having a skinning knife. To mine each type of node, your mining must be at a certain level. Here are the different types of ore veins. Next, when you find the mining node, you can hit and loot it 2 to 4 times, but you will only get a level up the very first time you hit the node. With that in mind, if you're in a group with multiple miners, you should let everyone take at least one swing at the ore vein to try and get their level up. Although we talked about the tiers of bars in blacksmithing, I'm also going to add what level in mining is required to gather from each node here. And I'm going to add what gens the nodes yield as well. Lastly, we have Herbalism. It's harder than skinning, but I'd say it's easier than mining. When you learn the Herbalism skill, you get 2 things: the ability to right-click and loot herb nodes, and the ability Find Herbs, which highlights said herb nodes on your minimap, just like mining. Unlike mining, there is no refining process for Herbalism. Since we didn't go into it in alchemy, here is the tier list for Herbalism and the level required to gather from each node. Herbalism gathering is much simpler than mining. You just harvest it once and you're good to go. Not much else to say about Herbalism. Now on to the secondary professions, starting with fishing. Fishing, as you might imagine, gathers, well, fish. The fish is mostly used in the cooking profession, but also sometimes in alchemy. Fishing involves going to pretty much any body of water, equipping your fishing pole, and clicking the fish ability. Your character will throw the line, and you'll get about a 30-second channel while waiting for your bobber to splash. When it does, you right-click the bobber as soon as you can. This is what we call an exhilarating gameplay experience. Unlike a profession like skinning or mining, you actually have to equip the fishing pole in order to use the fish ability. You will also find schools of fish, and when you land your cast on them, you will get that type of fish from the school that says is there. Likewise, you'll find floating wreckages and flotsams that, instead of yielding fish, usually yield trade goods or random loot boxes, good for farming for money. You can fish in basically any zone, but the higher the level of the zone, the harder it is to actually successfully yield anything from the cast. One way to offset that is to get a better fishing skill by getting better fishing rods and bait, which are consumables that you apply to your fishing rod that increase your fishing skill, as seen in the previous slide. Next up is cooking. If you didn't know it yet, food and drinks help you regenerate health and mana out of combat much faster, but cooking does more than just give you food for that purpose. It's often used to give you well-fed buffs that increase your stamina and spirit, or at higher levels of cooking, food-specific buffs that increase your base stats or give you certain effects. You get your reagents from either fishing or killing beasts and looting their meat. In order to craft most recipes, you need to be near a source of fire, or you make your own source of fire, which is a campfire made from flint and tinder and wood. Standing near the campfire also gives you a nice buff to spirit. Lastly, we have first aid. Now, first aid makes bandages from the cloth that you loot from humanoids, and it makes consumables that remove diseases or poisons. Now, bandages are consumable items that heal you over the course of a channeled cast of a couple seconds, and they can be used in combat. Now you can't just spam bandages, as you get about a 1-minute debuff preventing you from bandaging again. I'd say the other secondary professions are not super necessary to level up, but first aid should be taken by everyone because it's incredibly easy to level up, the reagents are inevitable, and it heals in combat and off of any kind of cooldown. Well, that wraps up all the professions. I hope this helped you out whether you're a noob learning this all for the first time or you're coming back to this video after hitting artisan in some profession to find that one trainer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.